Hello everyone, this is part 47 of What If Naruto Was the Devil Ninja, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. Because they were in an emergency situation, Lady Phoenix had decided to transport them directly to the battlefield with teleportation magic, something that normally was not allowed within the underworld unless you were a noble, one of the four great Satans, or had special permission. It was apparently a strictly regulated power, which explained why they traveled via train whenever they were in the underworld. A large magic circle had been drawn onto the stone floor of an unused room. It was complex, but Naruto was growing used to seeing such complicated circles. Rosweiss had been teaching him a lot, and Luffy had taught him even more. He, Koneko, Luffy Pendragon, and Revel were standing in the middle of this magic circle. Lady and Lord Phoenix were standing outside of it along with Ravel's oldest brother, Ruvel. It looks like the Chaos Brigade is launching an attack on several cities at once, Lady Phoenix said to them. Rias Gremory and the other members of her peerage have already been mobilized and are defending one of the cities in the Citri territory. We have been requested to mobilize our forces and travel toward the Ageas territory. There are currently a number of our forces already there, and they are doing what they can to evacuate the citizens, but evacuations take time. Your jobs will be to help defend the citizens until the evacuation is complete. Her expression grave, Lady Phoenix looked at Revel. Please take care of yourself. If you get overwhelmed, do not hesitate to retreat. Do not worry, Mother, Revel said. We will be fine. I am with Koneko and Naruto-sama. I'm also here, Luffy said with a huff. Did you forget about me? I have not forgotten about you, Revel assured. It's just that we haven't had a chance to really join forces before. Luffy didn't look like she'd been placated, but Naruto placed a hand on her head. In that case, I won't say any more, Lady Phoenix said. We're teleporting you now. Naruto was pretty used to teleportation magic these days, so he didn't bat an eye when the magic circle began glowing seconds before the world around them suddenly changed. Almost immediately after teleporting, the screams and cries from panicking and pained civilians reached his ears. The scent of fire and bee filled the air. Koneko wrinkled her nose. Revel had to cover her mouth and nose with her hand. Explosions rocked Naruto's eardrums. When he looked around, he saw several fires burning further away, buildings exploding as magic struck them, and many figures flying through the sky as they clashed. He recognized both forces. The ones fighting were the soldiers under Lord Phoenix's command, recognizable by the blazing armor they wore, which looked like crystallized flames, and members of the old Satan faction from the Chaos Brigade. It looks like the Chaos Brigade is going all out, Luffy said as she looked at something in the sky. They've even come with Nihonga. Naruto, Revel, and Koneko looked up to find out what Luffy meant, and that was when they saw it, the dragon. Its black scales were so dark it felt like all light that came near it would be devoured. Only his underbelly was a different color, being khaki. While his appearance was very serpentine, he had 4 limbs and 4 large wings, which he flapped to create powerful gusts that knocked multiple devils away. Naruto didn't know how big he was, but this dragon was quite large. What can you tell me about Nihonga? Asked Naruto. Not much. Luffy shook her head. Team Vali was not made privy to anything regarding the revival of evil dragons, so I don't know anything more than legend. Nihonga was a dragon whose greed was so insatiable that he even gnawed on a root of the world tree, Yggdrasil. His name means malice striker. The term Ni is a social stigma implying the loss of honor and the status of a villain in old Viking society. So, basically, we don't know what he's capable of, Naruto said with a sigh. I'm sorry, Luffy apologized. It isn't something for you to apologize over. It just means I'll be going in blind. Naruto took a moment to think about their situation, how they should fight, and then made a decision. I'm going to fight Nihonga alone. If I can pin him down and keep him from attacking, it should relieve some of the pressure our side is facing. In the meantime, I want you 3 to help protect the citizens. Are you sure you'll be okay on your own? Asked Revel in worry. I am, Naruto said with a reassuring grin. Don't worry. There's no way some lame-ass dragon is gonna beat me. Lei Fei sighed before a resigned smile appeared on her face. Only you would call one of the most powerful evil dragons in the world a lame-ass dragon. HMPH. Come on, you two, Koneko said. Naruto can deal with the flying lizard. We have our own job to do. Yes, you're right, Ravel agreed. Let's go. Ravel and Koneko flapped their wings and flew off, while Lei Fei followed them on her broom. He only watched them for a moment before looking back at the dragon. Nihongo swung its massive tail and slammed it into several devils unfortunate enough to be in its way. At the same time, several magic circles appeared around it and released streams of offensive magic. The magical attacks slammed into a number of devils from long range and blasted them out of the sky. It looked like this Nihongo was incredibly powerful. Naruto knew of the power of dragons, so he was aware of how strong they could be, but it seemed this particular dragon was more outstanding than the others. Pathetic devils. Nihongo roared. Dost thou really think such cretinous fools can defeat me? Foolish. Suffer the consequences of thou's defiance and s. Naruto decided at this point to intervene. He released his wings, created a magic circle underneath his feet, and blasted off the ground. The magic he used was wind magic, which propelled him forward at speeds far faster than even a devil could normally travel. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Several clones appeared around him, 5 in total, and they split up into 3 groups of 2. Naruto and the clone with him created a Raisin Shuriken. The other 2 groups created a Lava Release Raisin Shuriken. The 2 Yoten, Lava Release, Raisin Shurikens turned a molten orange color. Heat billowed from each jutsu, distorting the air around the lava-infused nucleus. So hot was this attack that even the blades swirling around it were emitting steam as they spun. Since releasing these techniques from close range was dangerous, Naruto sent the clones ahead and fell back. His plan was to blast Nihongo in the underbelly with all 3 jutsu at once. Not even a powerful dragon would be able to withstand such an attack. Well, that was his hope. Just before his attacks could strike the dragon, Nihongo swung his massive tail and set it into the clones. 2 of the clones dispelled, their techniques going with them, but the last clone managed to slam his Yoten Raisin Shuriken into the tail. A loud wail emitted from Nihongo as the attack annihilated his tail, then traveled on and slammed into his body. The jutsu expanded. A massive ball of lava formed in the around Nihongo, engulfing him completely. Several of the devils fighting in the vicinity paused when they saw this. Naruto was too far away to see their expressions, but they seemed surprised. Even the members of the Chaos Brigade had stopped attacking to look at Nihongo. You blasted devil. A loud roar erupted from within the ball of lava. I shall annihilate thee. The lava dispersed as a gust of wind erupted from within it. Nihongo was still alive, though it looked like half his body was missing. Yet even as Naruto stared, the dragon's body was reforming, slowly mending together until he was once again complete. So this dragon had a form of high-speed regeneration like Naruto, or at least something that resembled high-speed regeneration. That meant KO him outright would be hard. HMPH. I see now. Thou art the one who has been giving that Raizvim so much trouble lately, the one called Naruto. That's me, Naruto said. I hath heard that thee were a foolish devil who believed he was all-powerful, but to think you would dare to challenge me to combat. Doth your arrogance know no bounds? You speak funny, Naruto said. Do you have a speech impediment? Rude. Just for that insult, I shall destroy thee with all that I have. Naruto would have said something else, but Nihongo released a stream of black clouds from his body, which blew out in all directions. The black cloud didn't seem like much. Naruto at first thought it was a smoke screen of some kind, but then one of the devils nearby had the misfortune of being engulfed by the cloud. A pained wail like someone screaming at the top of their lungs echoed from within the cloud. Naruto couldn't quite see what was going on, but then the devil emerged, nearly all the F from his body burnt off. Now understanding that this black cloud was some kind of corrosive substance, Naruto decided not to try and fight it head-on. He flew backwards. Creating several magic circles in conjunction with a number of hand seals, Naruto unleashed a powerful burst of wind and tried to disperse the miasma, though all his attack ended up doing was shifting the black cloud to another area. It looked like this stuff was far too thick to forcibly disperse. Naruto created another clone and helped it create a Yoten Raisin Shuriken. He sent the clone toward the black cloud. His eyes narrowed when his clone slammed the jutsu into the corrosive substance. His attack SD straight through the cloud, then erupted somewhere in the center of this black formation. Perhaps it was because lava had a melting effect, but the black substance burned away and dissipated like water after turning into steam. That stuff Nihonga can release looks like miasma, Kurama said. It's basically just incredibly toxic fumes that are so strong they can burn away a person's body. Using lava to burn it up was a good idea. Thanks, Naruto said. Thou art quite the troublesome foe, but I am not finished yet. Nihonga released another loud roar as she swung his tail. Naruto moved back to avoid the attack, but then several magic circles appeared behind him and fired numerous magical attacks, which he was only able to dodge thanks to his quick reflexes. Naruto swerved around each attack. They passed him by a hair's breadth. Some of them came so close that he could feel his body boiling. Since it looked like his retreat was blocked, Naruto shot forward instead, arriving next to Nihonga within several seconds. Spinning his body around, Naruto created a magic circle on his heel. Then he created a Rasengan on his heel as well. The feet were the hardest place to channel chakra, but Naruto had become quite adept at it. The Rasengan formed with ease. Naruto slammed it down on Nihonga's back, then unleashed his wind magic, which caused the Rasengan to shoot forward, drill into Nihonga's scales, break through them, and punch a hole clean through the massive dragon's body. Just like Naruto expected, Nihonga did not go down from this, and the hole that went from his back and out his sea healed up within a few seconds. Thou art no ordinary devil, Nihonga rumbled. I can see now why the other members of the Chaos Brigade holdeth thee in such high regard. Thou art a dangerous foe. I shall take great pleasure in destroying thee. Do you know how many bad guys say that? Asked Naruto. That line right there is like the ultimate bad guy cliché. It's also a flag. The moment the villain talks about how he's going to destroy the hero is the moment he's lost. I have no idea what thou art talking about. Quit your inane babble and be destroyed. At that moment, what appeared to be over 1,000 magic circles appeared around Nihonga and Naruto. All of them were Norse magic circles, which made sense as Nihonga was supposedly a dragon from Norse mythology. As he stared at the magic circles, Naruto cracked his knuckles. You ready, Kurama? I am. Then let's get this party started. A stream of incredibly strong magic was unleashed. Hundreds of different types of magic soared through the air and slammed into Naruto, detonating with a power that caused every nearby battle to stop. In the center of this explosion of magical energy, Naruto transformed into a combination of Kurama mode and Six Paths Sage mode. 10 truth-seeking balls appeared around him, combined, and transformed into a barrier that protected him from the attack. When the explosion of magic diminished, the barrier peeled back and Naruto stared at the surprised Nihonga with a goofy grin on his face. That was some attack, but it's nowhere near good enough to defeat me. Naruto pointed at the dragon and struck a victorious pose. Didn't you know? I'm the most badass Fing Devil Ninja in the entire world. Devil Ninja. Revel, Koneko, and Luffy were doing their part to help the civilians evacuate. They were not part of the evacuation effort itself, but they were doing everything they could to protect those who were fleeing. Since the evacuation was being done by members of the Ageas family, Revel had decided the job would be to seek out and rescue civilians who were trapped or otherwise incapable of fleeing. To that end, they used Koneko's ability to sense life with senjutsu to their advantage. There are 2 people surrounded by half a dozen douches on R6, Koneko said as she turned around and began traveling in a different direction. I see them, Revel said. Luffy, can you provide us with long-range support? Of course. Luffy thumped her C as she flew on her broom alongside them. I'll support you both from a distance with my magic. With Luffy supporting them from the rear, Koneko and Revel rushed forward. By now, they could easily see the people they were charging at. 2 young boys were surrounded by 6 devils from the old Satan faction. The boys were crying, of course, and the old Satan faction devils were in the process of killing them. Magic circles were formed, hands were raised, and weapons were aimed. It seemed excessive to use that much power just to kill 2 children, but Revel knew these devils were trying to invoke fear in these kids before they Hey, douches, why don't you pick on someone your own size? You aren't their size, Revel wanted to say, but Koneko had already launched herself into the back of one of the old Satan faction devils. She winced as the sounds of bones snapping filled the air. The man she had struck released an agonized scream as he was blasted off his feet and set into the wall of a building, which quickly collapsed on top of him. The remaining 5 old Satan faction devils turned to Koneko. Ravel used the distracted state to her advantage, generating a massive tornado of fire, which swirled around her hand and burned so hot the air became distorted. She launched the fire tornado at the group, catching 2 devils in her attack. Both screamed as they were engulfed in flames, but those screams out soon enough. The power of her flames caused their bee to evaporate. "Who are these little girls?" shouted one of the remaining 3 old Satan faction devils. At that moment, Koneko appeared before him and punched him in the gut. Her attack was so powerful that not only did the man double over like a fold-out chair, but Ravel was sure his spine had snapped. Koneko showed this man no mercy. "Call me, little girl, again, Swede. Go on. I dare you." Whether or not the man would call her that again became irrelevant seconds later. Koneko was unwilling to show this man even a single sliver of mercy. After punching him so hard he nearly coughed up his kidney, she retracted her hand, then hit him with an uppercut so powerful his body was lifted several meters off the ground. Koneko finished her assault by leaping into the air, spinning her body around like a corkscrew, and slamming her heel down on the man's head. Koneko barrage. A shock wave erupted from where foot met skull. Ravel could not help but wince when she saw the bee spurting from the man's head, though he was launched back to the ground mere seconds later. The devil struck the ground with a thunderous explosion. Dust and pavement flew everywhere as many large cracks spread from the center of impact. Ravel warily watched as a large crack formed in the nearest building, which suddenly collapsed. There were 2 devils left, but Ravel didn't have to do anything to them. A pair of magic circles appeared underneath them. Seconds after they fully formed, strands of fire erupted from the magic circles and wrapped tightly around both devils. What the hell kind of magic is this? One of them shouted in shock. Hum. Le Fay quietly laughed as she thrust out her C and looked her nose down at the 2. "This is my new original magic. I created it based on the information I acquired from the Phoenix family's library. Isn't it great?" With a wave of her staff, Le Fay channeled magic into her spells, which caused the flames to become even more intense. Ravel became shocked when the flames suddenly turned blue. She was a Phoenix, a being of fire, yet even she could feel the heat from these flames. Even from over a meter away, the fire made her break out in sweat. "What kind of flames are these?" she asked with a whisper. She didn't think she'd been very loud, but Le Fay seemed to have heard her. "They aren't anything special," her fellow blonde answered. "The flames are blue due to the increased supply of oxygen. When I was deciding on what kind of fire I should use for this spell, I felt like a higher concentration of oxygen would help create a more powerful flame. Fire turns blue with an increased oxygen supply because the oxygen ionizes gas molecules in the flame." At that moment, the 2 devils trapped by the flames were reduced to ash. "Aha," Ravel muttered. Le Fay was on a roll now. "I actually showed this to Naruto as well. He was pretty impressed." "Is that so?" Ravel said. "Yup. And what about you?" asked Ravel, turning to Koneko. "Koneko barrage. Really?" Koneko shrugged. "I saw Naruto once pull off an attack he called the Uzumaki barrage. It seemed cool, so I thought I'd try it out." "You people," Ravel placed a hand to her forehead and shook it. "Oh, no. You seem to be exasperated by something, Ravel dear," a familiar and chilling voice suddenly said from above. Ravel, Koneko, and Le Fay looked up to find Riza floating above them, wings of fire jutting from his back. He wore the same clothing he had last time. Likewise, the same arrogant smirk was plastered on his face. Ravel felt the bee drain from her face, but she soon hardened her resolve. "I didn't realize we would meet again so soon, brother. You and me both." Riza swept a hand through his hair as the smirk on his face shifted into a mocking smile, which honestly wasn't all that different from the smirk. "I thought it would be at least a little while longer before we could meet again, but then I heard from my sources that you were in this town and decided to head over myself." The smile left and his expression turned serious. "I won't let you do as you please anymore. I'm taking you back to the old Satan faction with me." "I'm not going back with you," Ravel declared as she pointed at him. "Instead of going with you, I'm taking you back home." Riza's expression darkened. "That's not happening." "It is happening." Despite how she felt her knees shaking at the thought of confronting her brother again, Ravel still managed to smile. I'm not alone this time. You won't win. As she spoke, Koneko and Lefei closed ranks with her, as if to show their solidarity. She felt their presence even more than she saw them. Koneko had always been a constant in her life since she began living with Naruto, and the feeling of her presence next to Ravel made the blonde girl feel a lot more at ease. Lefei was new. She didn't know the magician that well, but she seemed like a good person. Naruto trusted her. That was what mattered. HMPH. Even if there are 2 more people, it won't matter, Razor said as the flames behind his back grew larger and burned even hotter. My power has grown a lot. Even Naruto himself wouldn't stand a chance against me now. As soon as he finished speaking, Riza held out his hand, producing a magic circle, which erupted with flames seconds later. The raging fire transformed into a phoenix. Releasing a powerful yet shrill shriek as it charged toward them, the mighty beast that was at least 5 meters large flapped its wings. Ravel, Koneko, and Lefei sprung away from the attack. Koneko darted across the ground, while Ravel and Lefei took to the skies. The phoenix struck the ground and exploded, but just as Ravel assumed they were safe, the flames from the explosion changed into streams of fire that raced toward her and her 2 companions. What impressive magic! Lefei shouted as she held out her staff and created a magic barrier around herself. Several streams of fire slammed into the shield, which shook something fierce but held. Ravel held out her hands and created a powerful tornado of fire that swirled around her body. The fire from Rise's attack struck the tornado and got sucked into it. The powerful rotational force of her magic tore the flames apart. When Ravel believed herself to be safe, she cancelled the fire tornado and looked over at Koneko. Her Nekosho companion was running along the ground, dodging multiple streams of fire that flew at her from all directions and angles. Ravel was about to race down and help out. Just before she could get moving, however, Koneko slammed a fist into the ground. The area underneath her feet caved in and Koneko disappeared seconds before the area around her feet exploded. Ha ha ha. Riza threw his head back and laughed. That's 1 down. Now I just need to deal with you 2. Ravel bit her lip as she looked at the sea of flames down below. She believed Koneko was alive, that her friend hadn't been hit by that attack, but that didn't mean she wasn't worried. What if she wasn't alive? What if she had been hit? She could be injured, on the verge of death. The very thought made her body quiver with fear and worry. Ravel shook her head, thinking like this wasn't going to help her. Ravel, let's use combination magic, Lefei suddenly shouted. Okay. Ravel and Lefei flew toward each other. Now standing shoulder to shoulder, the 2 created 1 magic circle each. Ravel's was, of course, the magic circle of her family, the House of Phoenix. On the other hand, it looked like Lefei was using a type of fairy magic. Ravel couldn't tell what the spell was, but she could sense the wind flowing through the magic circle. What's this? I hadn't realized you knew how to use combination magic, Ravel. It seems you've grown, Riza said, though he didn't sound concerned. I have grown, Ravel declared. Ever since I began living with Naruto, I've grown a lot. And now you'll get to see how much stronger I've become. Ravel's magic fired first, an explosion of intense flames that spewed from the magic circle like a torrent. They charged into Lefei's magic circle, which activated and created an intense wind, feeding the flames and making them even more powerful. The flames turned blue, then white as they turned into a fierce tornado that shot toward the now surprised Riza. Riza flew out of the way to dodge the attack, which was so hot it burned the very atmosphere. A smug smile twisted his lips after he dodged. Ravel narrowed her eyes and willed the flames to curve around. Riza was so certain he had avoided the attack that he didn't even think to look back. It didn't help that Lefei had created several more magic circles to keep his attention on her, though they were all dummy circles. The tornado of white fire slammed into Rise's back. The shocked man released a pained cry as he was sent sailing toward the ground like a comet. Before he could strike the earth, the ground exploded and Koneko burst from it. 2 tails had sprouted from her back and cat ears appeared on her head. Her body was covered in a light aura of power. Eat this, dips. Her movements were simple, a straightforward punch to the face, yet that punch contained an incredible power. Rise's face indented as Koneko slammed her tiny fist into his cheekbones. He couldn't even scream because his jaw had shattered. The flames behind his back dispersed as he spun through the air. Unable to correct his flight, he slammed into the ground, rolled across the ruined street, and only stopped after traveling for several meters. Ravel and Lefay landed beside Koneko and looked at Riza as he climbed to his feet. His body was already healing. Even so, there was an enraged look in his eyes. That was a good hit, he said. It seems you really have improved since our last battle, though I'm not surprised. You were always an intelligent girl. However, the flames surrounding Rise's body burned even hotter as they went from orange straight to white. You aren't the only one who has gotten stronger. This battle is far from over. As Riza charged up his next attack, Ravel and Lefay prepared their magic while Koneko raced forward. This battle had only just begun. Devil Ninja. Naruto grinned like a loon as he slammed his heels into Nihog's back. Undulations rippled across the surface of the dragon's skin as he added wind chakra to his kick, increasing the power of his attack and cracking the giant creature's scales. In response to his sudden assault, Nihonga roared in anger and tried to smack Naruto with his wings, but Naruto just flapped his devil wings and flew away. Damn, Brew. Not only are you mentally slow, you're also physically slow. No wonder all the other dragons make fun of you, you sorry excuse for a sack of leather. You should just turn yourself into a handbag out of shame. You. That does it. I am going to take great pleasure in KU. It was hard to figure out a dragon's facial expressions. Their reptilian muzzles didn't really allow them to change their expressions the way a human's face could, but it would have been obvious to anyone that Nihonga was incensed. He was thrashing around and roaring in outrage as Naruto hurled insults and taunts at him. You think you can K me? B please. I'm the most awesome ninja in the entire universe, and you're just a lame-ass dragon hoe. You can't even touch me. Lame-ass dragon hoe. Did you really just call a dragon a whore? Kurama snorted in his mind. Hey, I'm improvising my insults here. I'd like to see you do one better. While Kurama didn't think his insult was very good, Nihonga seemed to believe otherwise. Naruto was sure the dragon's face would have turned red if it could. I'm going to KU. A powerful flame blew from Nihonga's mouth, dragon breath. It looked almost like a condensed black beam of energy, but Naruto knew from experience that it was black fire. It kinda reminded him of Amaterasu. Naruto dodged the attack by simply drifting to the side. All of Nihonga's attacks were very linear, traveling in a straight line, never deviating from the given course, which made avoiding them easy. It helped that Nihonga wasn't thinking straight. The dragon was so enraged he couldn't even come up with a halfway decent strategy. Since Nihonga was angry and unable to think straight, Naruto decided now would be the perfect time to pull the dragon away from the city. He couldn't fight in such a crowded place. Hey, Dragon B! Naruto shouted at Nihonga before turning around and smacking his ass in a taunting gesture. If you want to K me, you're going to have to catch me. Nihonga was probably seeing red by this point. The dragon's eyes had narrowed, lips peeled back and his large white fangs visibly glinting in the strange light of the underworld. You asked for it. I will annihilate you. Naruto laughed as he flew off, Nihonga rushing after him. To increase his speed, Naruto channeled wind chakra to his wings and feet, creating a tornado beneath his feet to propel him forward. He needed to get far enough away from the city that he could unleash an attack powerful enough to destroy Nihonga in a single blow. I think you might have done too good a job at angering him, Naruto. Why do you say that? He's catching up. What? Naruto shouted out loud as he turned his head and looked behind him to see that, indeed, Nihonga was right behind him and getting ready to try and Naruto with one of his massive claws. OS. Naruto changed the angle he was blasting out wind chakra and swerved to the side, avoiding the incoming claw, which rent the air. He had always been told that dragons had a lot of power. Of course, he knew this to be true as well, but in that moment, as a massive hurricane of force winds slammed into him, he truly understood what people meant. Dragons were Fing strong. Holy S. Gritting his teeth, Naruto descended toward the ground. He used his truth-seeking balls to protect himself from Nihonga's magic attacks and avoided his physical attacks with aerial maneuvers. Aside from the floating island, most of the Agare's land was composed of mountains and valleys. Naruto tried to use the mountainous region to his advantage, swerving around massive geographical land masses jutting from the ground, disappearing into valleys filled with trees, and hiding out in the hopes of catching a break. None of it worked. Nihoga rammed straight through the mountains with his massive body, blasting them all to chunks. He burned the trees in the valleys with his black flames. It didn't matter where Naruto tried to hide, for Nihoga seemed to have locked onto him through some means Naruto couldn't discern. In short, he couldn't run. Well, damn. What should we do now? Naruto flew into the sky. Nihoga followed him. The giant mass of muscles and scales unleashed so many powerful attacks the very sky became filled with magic. Naruto created hundreds of shadow clones and made liberal use of the replacement technique to keep himself from being hit. Why are you asking me? Wasn't the original plan to reverse summon me? It was, but I can't do that if I can't even catch a break. And whose fault is that? Not mine. Denial is such an ugly emotion. While Naruto was talking to Kurama, Nihoga was getting increasingly angry, as displayed by how his attacks were becoming more numerous, more powerful, and more reckless. Hold still, you damn pest. The area around them had been completely destroyed. Mountains lay shattered, forests were burning, and massive craters at least 50 meters across covered much of the ground. Naruto really hoped the Agares didn't need these places for anything. Well, I guess I can just try K him normally. Naruto sighed as he slipped behind Nihoga while the enraged dragon was busy K his clones. He created another clone, had it create a Rasengan, and then added the wind element to create the Rasen Shuriken. The clone didn't need to be told what to do. The moment the Rasen Shuriken was in his hands, the Naruto clone shot forth, extended his hand, and slammed into Nihoga. Another pained roar escaped the dragon's mouth as the wind chakra expanded, creating a sphere of influence. Within that sphere, millions of microscopic wind blades SD into Nihoga's skin, cutting his F. Even though this dragon was massive, the wind sphere encompassed his entire body. When the attack dispersed, Nihoga fell down and struck the ground so hard the earth quaked. B gushed from wounds on his body. He looked like he might S. In fact, Naruto hoped he was S, though that hope was dashed when the creature's body healed and he stood back up. Stupid regeneration, Naruto grumbled. Now you know how your enemies must feel. Put a sock in it, Kurama. It seems I have truly underestimated thee, brat. I hath heard thee were strong, but I never expected thee to be this strong, Nihoga said as he glared at Naruto. He seemed to have calmed down some. He was back to speaking in that weird dialect of his. Naruto made a big show of buffing his nails. Maybe you should have. I mean, I am the most powerful ninja ever. Even Metatron worships the ground I walk on. HMPH. I do not care about what some pathetic angel worships. However, I will admit that thee are a lot more powerful than I believed thee would be. But it doesn't matter how strong thou art. In the face of my overwhelming might, thee are but an insignificant worm. Says the worm crawling around on the ground, Naruto insulted. Why don't you say that after you've beaten me? Fine. Nihoga gnashed his giant teeth together. Prepare to S. Hundreds of thousands of magic circles appeared around Nihoga. All of them were some form of dragon magic. Naruto didn't know what they did, but even he could feel the overwhelming magic power coming from these attacks. Any one of them could K an ultimate class devil. Magic blasted from the magic circles and traveled toward Naruto, who quickly replaced himself with a clone and got the hell out of dodge. He moved quickly as the magic attacks exploded behind him. The power was so great that the force of the explosion slammed into Naruto while he was fleeing. Fortunately, he had accommodated for this and used the force to fly faster toward Nihoga. Let's see how you deal with my Jiten Rasengan, Magnet Rasengan. The Jiten Rasengan was an attack Naruto had gained after inheriting the Rikudo Sennin's powers. By combining his Rasengan with Shukaku's Jiten to reinforce its suction power, he created a Rasengan that contained the beast's cursed seal markings. It didn't look like much. Compared to the Rasen Shuriken, this didn't look anywhere near as sly. Naruto slammed the Jiten Rasengan into Nihoga. The cursed seal markings within the Rasengan quickly spread across Nihoga's body, binding the dragon as though they were chains. What is this? That's just to keep you still, Naruto said as he formed a cross-shaped hand seal. The real attack begins now. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruto created 8 clones, then held out his hand and created a Rasen Shuriken. He usually had a clone to the nature or shape manipulation, but this time, he did it himself. It took a bit more time, but that was what the Jitten Rasengan had been for. While he created a Raisin Shuriken, the clones each created a Raisin Shuriken of their own, but each one contained the properties of a different tailed beast. Here we go. Suck on this. Senpo, Chobiju Raisin Shuriken, Sage Art, Super Tailed Beast Raisin Shuriken. Once all of the jutsu were created, Naruto and his 8 clones hurled them at Nihonga, who was still struggling on the ground. Each jutsu careened toward the massive dragon and struck hard. A series of huge explosions went up in the air. Naruto's clone dispelled as the real Naruto raised a hand to his face, covering it as the devastating detonations pushed against him. His eyes watered, though he continued to stare at the destruction his technique had unleashed. When the attack finally cleared, Naruto lowered his hand and looked at the massive crater that now scarred the ground. It was far bigger than the ones Nihonga had created. This crater was at least 100 meters across. Naruto couldn't even begin to guess at how deep it was, but it reminded him vaguely of this crater he'd seen in history class, which had scarred the earth when a meteor struck the ground. Nihonga was nowhere in sight. Well, I guess that takes care of that. Naruto clapped his hands as if ridding them of dust. He turned around and was about to head back into the city, even though he wasn't sure exactly which direction he should travel. Before he could move too far, Kurama stopped him. That dragon isn't S. Huh. Naruto stopped moving. You're kidding, right? Did you not see what just happened? I blew that blasted flying lizard to Kingdom Come. There isn't a shred of him left. I don't know what to tell you, but Nihonga isn't S. Kurama, you haven't gone blind, have you? It's obvious that he's. Naruto turned around to look at the giant crater, only to freeze when he saw the air within the crater distorting. Waves of miasma covered the area. From within the miasma, a body emerged. First came a set of massive feet with sharp claws, then powerful legs with rippling muscles, followed by a scaled and serpentine body. The last part to form was the head. Nihonga, now revived through his freaky self-resurrection powers, roared out as though in defiance. He spread his wings and slammed his tail into the ground. Then he turned his head to glare at Naruto. He isn't S, Naruto said out loud. Told you so, Kurama said. Mother there. Naruto would have complained more, but, well, it wasn't like Nihonga was going to give him the time to be and M about this. With a sigh, he cracked his knuckles, hardened his expression, and got ready. Fine. Let's do this. I can go another round. Devil Ninja. Just like she had done during her mock battle with Revel created a vacuum space around Riza. Fire needed oxygen to burn. While Riza could use his own demonic power to create and maintain a fire, it would waste power and would also require him to concentrate harder on what he was doing. This would, in theory, cause him to become distracted. The wind around Riza picked up, turning into a fierce gale shaped like a sphere. Within this sphere, no oxygen existed. Revel willed the air to travel out of the sphere and used the incredible rotational force to keep it from reaching the inside where Riza was. Did you think I wouldn't know what you were trying to do, dear sister? Asked Riza the moment he felt the wind vacuum surround him. I am also a Phoenix, you know. I have the same power of wind and fire that you do, except my power is stronger. That may be so, but you don't have as much control as I do, Revel countered, her glare fierce. You are much better at firing off big attacks than you are creating small and harmless ones. Riza clicked his tongue. That is true. Fine. Let us see how you handle this. Several magic circles appeared around Riza. A beam of condensed fire flew from each one. However, they never hit their intended target, Revel, for Le Fay quickly intercepted them. She created several magic circles, one for each beam fired. The beams struck the magic circles, then vanished. Meanwhile, another set of magic circles appeared in the sky, and the beams Riza fired from out of them and traveled harmlessly into the distance. Is that teleportation magic? Asked a shocked Riza. Fire teleportation magic, Le Fay corrected. At the same time that Le Fay was blocking Riza's attacks, Koneko descended from the sky, rotated her body around, and slammed her left heel on top of Riza's head before he knew what was happening. The attack was powerful. A shock wave spread through the air like a ripple as Riza plummeted to the ground, crashing hard enough to create a crater. Now, Revel shouted as she created several magic circles around herself. Le Fay also created several magic circles. Unlike Ravel's, which were pure devil magic, hers were a combination of fairy magic and Norse magic. And while Ravel's contained a strong fire element, LeFay's were all wind magic. The numerous magic circles from both LeFay and Ravel became stacked on top of each other like a set of plates, with Ravel's in back and LeFay's in front. Ready? Asked Ravel. Ready, LeFay said. As Koneko landed on a building several meters to their left, LeFay and Ravel launched their combination magic. Fire erupted from Ravel's magic circles and wind from LeFay's. The fire was simply an incredibly intense flame. Ravel hadn't focused on making the magic into a shape but on increasing the heat. Fennec's family members controlled fire and wind, but they were not immune to them, which meant a hotter flame had a greater chance of dealing damage. While Ravel's flames were just intensely hot, LeFay's wind magic was special. Each wind attack was shaped like a drill. When the flames struck the drills, they absorbed all the fire, increasing both their strength and also letting the fire conform to the shape of the drill. Now transformed into flaming drills of fire, the multiple attacks descended toward the crater and exploded. A plume of bright white fire rose into the sky. Ravel shut her eyes against the intense white light. It felt like daggers stabbing her eyes. She covered her face with her hands to further protect them. Seconds after the explosion, a shock wave of rushing wind slammed into her and LeFay. Ravel flapped her wings harder to avoid being knocked off balance. Oddly enough, the incredible wind forces slamming into her ceased after several seconds. She found out why when, upon opening her eyes, she found a barrier right in front of her. This is a magic barrier using white magic, LeFay said. So this is white magic, Ravel murmured as she stared at the opaque barrier surrounding them. It was shaped like a giant sphere. I've never seen white magic before. Back in the olden days of Europe, white magic was often considered the magic used by good witches, LeFay said, looking at the magic fire still raging before them. The conflagration had spread past the crater Rizzo was in and moved onto the surrounding buildings. We know better now. Magic is just magic. However, a long time ago, it was believed that anyone who used black magic was evil and white magic was good, well, until the witch burnings began. Then every witch was an evil witch. As LeFay explained a little about magic history, the howling winds around them suddenly reversed course and went back toward the now-s explosion. Ravel and LeFay remained safe thanks to LeFay's barrier. Koneko was not within their barrier, but when Ravel glanced at her, she saw that the white-haired girl was fine. Koneko was crouched on a building and digging her fingers into the rooftop to remain in place. Do you think that defeated him? Asked LeFay. No. Ravel shook her head. My brother is a Phoenix. He's more than likely already healed from all his injuries and is waiting to attack. Since a frontal assault didn't work, he's going to try something tricky. I bet he'll wait until we check to see if he's really S. Once we're near the crater, he'll launch a surprise attack to catch us off guard. So what should we do? Asked LeFay as she dropped the barrier. Koneko. Ravel suddenly shouted at her friend. Hit me. Koneko said as she leapt into the air. Koneko was already transformed into her Nekomata mode level 2. Her body was covered in a layer of Tuki, which caused her to glow. Ravel created a large magic circle over the crater, which Koneko passed through. As she passed through the circle, her extended fist suddenly caught fire. The flames wrapped around her fist and changed shape into a demonic-looking cat. Then Koneko disappeared into the crater. Ravel waited on bated breath and flew closer to look inside the crater, where Koneko was trying to punch Rizzo Phoenix with her demonic cat fire fist. She was being blocked by a defensive magic circle. Rizzo was lying underneath the circle, his teeth grit so hard it looked like his gums might start B. Do not think you can defeat me like this, Rizzo roared. I've never lost to a chicken bee before. I'm not about to start now, Koneko said with narrowed eyes. The magic circle she was attacking with her magically enhanced fire punch cracked. The crack multiplied and spread across the magic circle. Rise's eyes bulged. No, how can this be? He shouted. Koneko snorted. Suck on this, dips. Her attack finally shattered the magic circle and crashed into Rizzo with all the power of a hurricane. The explosion that went up this time was not as powerful as the one that Ravel and LeFay unleashed with their combination magic, but it was a lot more concentrated too. Rizzo didn't stand a chance. Ravel felt a moment of sympathy when Rise's body was slammed into the ground, which cracked and split around his body. His skin blistered and boiled from the intense heat. It was something not even a Phoenix could withstand. Koneko leapt away from Riza as Ravel and Luffy landed next to her. They all stared at the defeated figure lying on the ground. Rise's wounds were healing again, but even so, his body refused to move. He struggled to get up, but no matter how hard he tried to get his body to move, it remained where it was. You've lost, brother, Ravel said as she walked up to him. How can this be? He grunted. How come you defeated me so easily? It's because I wasn't fighting alone, Ravel announced with her hands on her hips. We both know there's no way I could defeat you by myself, but I am not by myself. I have Koneko and Luffy helping me. Even if you're stronger than any one of us, you aren't stronger than all three of us combined. Damn it. Give up and come home, Ravel said. I can't, Riza grunted. You don't understand, the old Satan faction, they aren't someone you can just mess with. Our family is in danger. That's why. What? Ravel took a step back. What do you mean in danger? Why would they be in danger? From what? Riza sighed as his body relaxed. It seemed the fight had gone out of him. The old Satan faction has many different weapons at the disposal, powerful weapons that not even a devil who exceeds ultimate class can withstand. When I was still bitter over my loss to Naruto, Euclid came to me and said I should join him, and when I refused, he showed me the power their side possessed, showed me what would happen if we resisted. I decided to join him on the condition that you and my peerage were not harmed. Ravel shifted from one foot to the other. So her brother hadn't joined the old Satan faction to get revenge on Naruto. He had joined to protect his family. She placed a hand against her sea and breathed a sigh of relief. While some part of her had hoped this was the case, it was still relieving to hear. I'm guessing you didn't bring your peerage with you because you didn't want them getting in trouble in case US, Ravel said. I knew fighting against the three factions alliance may result in my death, Riza mumbled. If I did end up I didn't want my peerage to join me in death. Ravel nodded. Meanwhile, Koneko and Luffy looked like they weren't sure what to make of this situation. Koneko, in particular, looked pretty surprised. What I want to know is what this great threat you're talking about is. The little Nekosho took a step forward. Is it really something that can threaten the three factions alliance? Riza released a dry laugh. It is an incredible power the likes of which I have never seen. Risevim Lucifer has somehow managed to get his hands on the Sephiroth Graal. Luffy gasped and covered her hand with her mouth. Do you know what that is? Asked Koneko. Sephiroth Graal is one of the 13 Longinus, Luffy explained, her face pale. It is also known as the Holy Grail. It's the very same Holy Grail from the Last Supper that Jesus Christ used and the Grail of Arthurian legend. Along with the true Longinus and Incinerate Anthem, it is known as a holy relic. Luffy furrowed her brow. The Sephiroth Graal has the ability to make contact with the principle of life. Possessors of it are told about how life and souls are made. It basically grants them incredible knowledge about life, death, and the creation of life. With its power to control the principle of life, the one who wields it can bring the death back to life. I see. Ravel's eyes widened. That's how the old Satan faction managed to revive the evil dragons. I do not know where or how he got his hands on the Sephiroth Graal, Riza said. But with its power, he has been able to revive the evil dragons. Of course, it is not as if the evil dragons are his only trump card. He has many hidden trump cards at his disposal. So that's why you joined the old Satan faction? Asked Ravel for confirmation. Riza sighed. He said that if I didn't join him, he would kill my family and peerage, so I made a deal. Ravel looked at her two companions and saw the uncertain expressions on their faces. Neither of them knew what to think. She considered what she'd been told, then sighed as she turned to Riza. We're going to take you back with us, and you are going to tell Syrinx and the others everything you know. You'll probably be punished for betraying the three factions alliance, but hopefully, your punishment will be lighter thanks to the information you have. I guess I don't have a choice, Riza said with a wry smile. I can hardly move. Neither Koneko or Luffy contested Ravel's decision, so they set about securing Riza with a special rope that could restrain a devil's power to some extent. Since Koneko was the strongest among them, she carried Riza as they left the crater. Now all they had to do was hook back up with Naruto. Devil Ninja. Naruto frowned as he watched Nihoga revive once more. The head that Naruto had blown apart reformed, The wings that had been shredded were back, and the scales that had been busted, broken, and melted down into slag appeared as pristine as if they'd never undergone such unspeakable TS. It was enough to make Naruto annoyed. Kurama, how many times have we K this dragon? I stopped keeping track after 50. Their battle against Nihonga had been going on for some time now, long enough that Naruto had K this thing several dozen times within the last half an hour. He'd removed the dragon's head, cut open his stomach, lopped off his limbs, and even made his entire body undergo spontaneous combustion. Every time Nihonga he would just revive. Naruto only knew a tiny bit about Nihonga. He was a dragon from Norse mythology, and it had been said that because of his greed, he was capable of reviving himself after being K. Whether this self-resurrection ability was thanks to gnawing on the root of Yggdrasil or something else, Naruto couldn't say. All he knew was this ability was annoying. How much longer can I remain like this? I'd say 10 minutes. Ugh, so not long. This was a problem. Naruto didn't know how many more times he needed to K Nihonga to beat him for good, or indeed, if such a thing was even possible. Maybe this dragon really was invincible. Ugh. Nihonga groaned as he finished reviving, his body shaking as he swayed from side to side. While he didn't look injured, it seemed he was at least affected by death each time it happened. You damn bastard, I'll K you. Naruto snorted. Don't talk about K someone when you can't even keep yourself from you sorry ass excuse for a dragon. Bastard. Despite how Nihonga must have hated him by now, the dragon didn't appear to have the strength to muster his K intent. Naruto wondered if this meant he was close to Well, there was only one way to find out. All right. Naruto cracked his knuckles and began walking toward Nihonga. Let's continue fighting. You want to keep going. The ground rumbled beneath Nihonga's feet as the massive dragon stumbled backward. Not a chance. I'm not about to let myself be K again. I'm out of here. Naruto blinked in surprise when the dragon suddenly flapped its wings and took off. He tilted his head to watch as Nihonga flew away as far and as fast as he could, wondering if maybe he should chase after the dragon and finish him, but then he sighed and slowly shook his head. Maybe he could K Nihonga, but he didn't have much chakra left. It would be better to conserve chakra in case he needed it when he got back to the city. With a sigh, Naruto flapped his devil wings and soared into the air. He was much further from the city he'd been defending than he originally thought, so it took around an hour to reach it. When he did, Naruto found that the battle was mostly over. A lot of the three factions' alliance soldiers were in the process of rendering first aid to the injured, searching for survivors, or in destroyed buildings, and clearing away rubble. Naruto found Revel, Koneko, and Luffy standing guard over none other than Riza Phoenix. The man was bound up in special chains that negated demonic powers. For a devil who had been rendered harmless, he seemed awfully accepting of his situation. As Naruto landed on the ground, Revel and the others turned to him. While Riza looked like he had swallowed a lemon, Revel, Koneko, and Luffy burst into smiles. Naruto-sama, Revel said as he walked over to them. I'm glad to see you're okay. Me too. Naruto placed a hand on her head and gently rubbed her hair. I'm glad none of you are hurt. He glanced over at Riza, who looked away as though the mere sight of Naruto sickened him. I see you managed to beat your brother. We did, Revel said, turning to her brother and frowning. There was something in that frown that made Naruto think there had been more to this battle than a simple fight, but then the blonde turned back to him and smiled again. It wasn't easy, but it was a lot less difficult than it would have been if I'd fought him by myself. HMPH. Speak for yourself. Koneko raised a hand and gave Naruto the victory sign. I kicked ass. Capital on the A. Naruto grinned and began petting Koneko's head. As expected of Koneko, kicking ass and taking names is your calling card. You know it. While Naruto would have loved to pamper this girl some more, he knew now wasn't the time for that. Removing his hand from Koneko's soft white hair, he moved over to Riza, who was still pretending Naruto didn't exist. It's been a while, Naruto said. I haven't seen you since we fought in that rating game. HMPH. If I had my way, I would have preferred never seeing you again, Riza said. That might have been possible if you hadn't joined the Chaos Brigade. I have my reasons for doing what I did. I don't need to tell you anything. It was clear from Rise's responses that he wasn't going to give Naruto the time of day, and Naruto wasn't much of an interrogation expert, so he couldn't be bothered to try and get answers out of the man. Instead, he decided to speak with Revel about this. Did you manage to learn anything about why Riza joined the Chaos Brigade? He asked. Well, Revel explained to Naruto what happened during and after the battle with her brother, and Naruto learned that Riza had, in fact, joined the Chaos Brigade to protect his family. It was misguided. Rise's actions had caused more harm than good. Riza himself would be considered a criminal now and have to bear the responsibilities that come from committing a war crime, but it seemed Ravel's brother at least had good intentions. Naruto still didn't really like him, though. What should we do now? Asked Luffy. First, we should deliver Riza Phoenix back to House Phoenix, Naruto said, looking at Revel. She nodded, so he continued. After that, we should hook back up with Rias and the others. I heard they were in the Citri territory, so we should travel there next. Naruto really wanted to travel there first, but he didn't think rushing to the Citri territory would help. Chances were good the battle was already over. While standard protocols dictated that Riza should be given to the commanding officer in charge and tried in a martial court, they were given special permission to take Riza back home to the House Phoenix estate. Because no one present could transport them using magic, they ended up taking a train back to the Phoenix territory. The train ride didn't take longer than 6 hours. That might not have been a long time, but Naruto still didn't like how long it took. All the time he spent in that train was time he could have spent meeting back up with Rias. Lady and Lord Phoenix were informed beforehand that Revel was coming back home with their wayward son in tow. They were waiting for the group outside of the entrance to their estate. Not only was the Lord and Lady present, but Rise's entire peerage had come to greet them. Riza was still in handcuffs. Riza Phoenix could only remain awkwardly still as his mother engulfed him in a warm hug, the kind of motherly gesture only someone who had raised a child could do. I am so glad you're safe and back home, Lady Phoenix said, tears in her eyes. Riza didn't look like he knew what to say. Me too. However, you are also in a lot of trouble, Lady Phoenix continued. I figured as much. Lord Phoenix was a lot more reserved than his wife, waiting until Lady Phoenix stepped away from her son before walking up to him. The man's face was a mixture of emotion. Joy, anger, disappointment, and relief combined to create a truly disastrous-looking face. Riza, perhaps able to sense these emotions even better than Naruto, looked away. I hope you realize how much trouble you have caused us, and me personally, Lord Phoenix said. I do, Riza mumbled. Sorry. Naruto found the sight of Riza humbling himself odd. All Naruto had ever known was the arrogant prick who tried to force Rias into marrying him. Revel might have told him that wasn't all Riza had to him, that the man was more than just a jerk, but he simply couldn't believe the man was anything other than a asshole with a stick shoved so far up his rectum he had to waddle like a penguin when walking. However, he guessed there was more to this man than first meets the eye. After Rise's parents spoke to the man, his harem, his peerage, greeted him next. Naruto didn't stick around to see the man become buried under a pile of women. He went to his room and began packing away all his stuff. Koneko and Luffy helped him out. Naruto was sure Revel would have helped them pack everything as well, but she was still with her family. So we're really leaving today? Asked Luffy as she carefully folded her clothes and placed them in a suitcase. Wouldn't it be better if we stayed the night? It's not like we'll be able to help Rias and the others even if we head out now. I know, Naruto admitted. But I dislike being away from her for so long when there's trouble happening. We also don't know if Rias and the others are safe. Naruto folded up his boxes, placed them in his suitcase, then grabbed his next article of clothing. It was just simple orange pants. He folded those up as well. You are in luck then, a voice said seconds before the door to his bedroom opened. Lady Phoenix walked into the room with her daughter trailing after her. She smiled at Naruto and everyone else before speaking again. I have just received word from the Citri territory that the battle has ended. Rias Gremory and the other members of her peerage are safe. That being the case, why not stay the night and head over tomorrow morning? You must all be exhausted after having fought so hard. Naruto still wasn't sure he wanted to remain there, but when he saw the look on Ravel's face, he decided there was no harm in remaining for one more night. Rias was safe. While it rankled on his nerves that he hadn't been there during her time of need, the important thing was that she and the others were unharmed. I guess we can stick around for another night, he said with a sigh. Excellent. Lady Phoenix clapped her hands together. In that case, I shall have our servants prepare dinner soon. In the meantime, you four should relax. Lady Phoenix left to ask a servant to prepare dinner. Ravel didn't join her and instead began helping pack for the journey tomorrow. She bantered with Koneko, talked about magic with Luffy, and treated him the same as always. Even so, Naruto noticed her looking at him when she thought he wasn't looking. He wondered if she wanted something. After packing all of their supplies, the group decided to lounge around until it was time for dinner. Luffy pulled out a book she'd found in the Phoenix library on fire magic. Koneko went to sleep. She also decided to use his lap as a pillow, and Ravel sat on the bed and leaned against Naruto, her head resting on his shoulder. It almost felt like nothing had really changed even after what they'd just been through. About 2 hours after Lady Phoenix left, a servant came to inform them all that dinner was ready, so Naruto woke up Koneko and the four of them traveled to the dining hall, where a large feast had been prepared. Devil Ninja. Naruto woke up to find a weight on his sea. It was Koneko, of course, lying on top of him like he was an oversized pillow. The young Nekosho wasn't N, but her clothing was very thin. He could feel her NS through her shirt. Climbing out from underneath her was a little tough, but Naruto was a ninja and replaced himself with a shadow clone. Thank you for this blessing, boss, the clone whispered as he wrapped his arms around Koneko. Naruto wondered if it was possible to feel jealous of himself, but he shook the thought off and wandered out of the guest room and down the hall. Despite how he was only wearing boxes, Naruto didn't feel cold at all, which likely had something to do with all the fire around this place. Even these hallways were decorated with flames. It took a bit of effort to find the kitchen. He still didn't know where everything was in this large mansion, but he eventually reached it and got himself a glass of water. His tea was a little parched. He was heading back to his bedroom when he caught sight of someone else walking down the hall. Dressed in a light pink nightgown, her blonde hair falling freely around her, Ravel Phoenix padded barefoot across the soft carpet. She seemed to be lost in thought. Ravel. Hien. Ravel nearly jumped out of her skin when he called her name. She placed a hand against her sea and turned to him, her eyes wide. Oh, Naruto. It's just you. You startled me. Lost in thought? Asked Naruto. Ravel nodded. I couldn't sleep, so I've been reviewing my fight against my brother. I wanted to see if there was anything I could have done differently. I also wanted to know if it would have been possible to beat him by myself. And what answers have you come to? Asked Naruto. That beating him by myself at this stage is impossible, Ravel admitted with a wry smile. I might have the strategy, but I don't have the strength, and without the strength necessary, all my strategies against him are useless. Devil Ninja. The morning after the attack on the Agere's land found Naruto, Ravel, Koneko, and Luffy standing outside a train station within House Phoenix's territory. Lord and Lady Phoenix, along with Ruvel Phoenix, were with them. Rizzo was conspicuously absent as was his peerage, but Naruto didn't let that bother him. He had been expecting it. I do wish you could stay a bit longer. Lady Phoenix placed a hand against her cheek and looked at her daughter with a fretful frown. I feel like I didn't get to see you enough. You were always training this entire time. I'm sorry, mother. Ravel gave her mom an apologetic bow. I promise, next time I come for a visit, it will not be to train but just to see how you and father are doing. I will hold you to that, Lady Phoenix said, her smile widening as she turned her eyes on Naruto before looking back at her daughter. Make sure you bring your fiancé along with you again. While Ravel looked at the ground and fidgeted, Naruto locked eyes with her mother, who had a gleam in her eyes that he was certain he recognized, then shifted his gaze to Ruvel. When the older man looked away, he finally glanced at Lord Phoenix. The man kept his gaze for a second, twitched, and then coughed into his hand. That was enough to make Naruto wish he could sigh. They know we had last night. Well, it wasn't like they had been quiet. Actually, now that he was thinking about it, Ravel had been really loud. While her room was the only one in that hallway, plenty of maids and servants passed by during the night to clean. All it would take was one curious maid walking past the door when they were having for the entire house to know. Maids love to gossip. I will, Ravel mumbled. Then it's settled. Lady Phoenix clapped her hands as if the next visit was already a done deal. They could not remain there for long, so after saying the goodbyes, Naruto, Revel, Koneko, and Luffy boarded the train and sat down on one of the many posh red couches. Since this train belonged to House Phoenix, everything was decorated to look like flames. There were also several flames decorating the corners where trees would normally be placed to add color. Their destination right now was the Gremory estate. The trip took exactly 8 hours to reach, so the four of them spent most of their time doing what they could to pass the time. They played several games of cards, chess, and mahjong. Perhaps not so surprisingly, the game of mahjong ended up becoming a game of mahjong. This isn't fair. Revel ground her teeth in frustration as she was forced to once more off an article of clothing. It was her skirt this time. Thus far she had been forced to remove her shoes and socks, which meant all she had on now was her shirt, bra, and panties. For some reason, Naruto thought the act of wearing a shirt but nothing on the bottom was hotter than if she'd completely Life's not fair. Koneko placed all the tiles face down on the table and began shuffling them. Suck it up and deal with it. You suck it up and deal with it. Revel snapped. How is it that I have lost twice in a row now? Meanwhile, he hasn't lost even once. She pointed at Naruto, who grinned and scratched the back of his head. Don't smile at me in such a bashful manner. I know you're doing that on purpose. Naruto hasn't lost because he's got the devil's luck, Koneko said. Once all the tiles were properly shuffled, Naruto, Revel, Luffy, and Koneko stacked a row of 14 tiles that was 2 tiles high, meaning all of them had 28 tiles total. They pushed the tiles together to form a square shape in the center of the table. Naruto is incredibly lucky, Luffy added as she frowned at her tiles. I've always wondered about that, but he seems to just have phenomenally good luck with everything he does. Stop it. You're making me blush, Naruto said with a completely straight face. Mahjong was a game played with 144 tiles based on Chinese characters and symbols. Players started off by receiving 14 tiles. The goal of the game is to get Mahjong, which consists of getting all 14 tiles into 4 sets and 1 pair. A pair was 2 identical tiles. Meanwhile, a set could either be a pun, which was 3 consecutive tiles, or a chow, a run of 3 consecutive numbers of the same unit. A single tile could not be used in 3 sets at once. They were playing by fairly standard rules since Luffy had never played Mahjong before. It would not have been fair if they made this game overly complicated. At least you are still mostly clothed, Luffy said with a small sigh as she looked down at herself. Luffy had already been forced to strip off her shoes, socks, skirt, and shirt, meaning she only had 2 articles of clothing left. It had been decided that once a person no longer had any clothes left, they would be disqualified from the match. Luffy was the closest to being disqualified. On that note, Koneko was currently topless. Her small, perky BS were on full display. She didn't even bother covering them at all. Naruto wondered if she knew he was thinking about taking those tiny teeth into his mouth and suckling on them. He didn't say anything, however, but only because he knew she was probably trying to get him all hot and bothered. He didn't want to let her see him sweat. This next round lasted quite a while, but it eventually ended in Luffy's defeat. While Revel cheered with a fist pump to the air, Luffy sighed, glanced at Naruto, blushed bright red, and slowly reached behind her back to undo the clasp on her bra. So this one didn't come with a front hook. Naruto thought all girls wore front-hooking bras since they were easier to remove. The clasp broke and her BS sprang free. With an embarrassed blush, she slid the bra from her shoulders, revealing her perky tee. Naruto didn't think he'd seen Luffy's BS before. Now that he had, however, he could say she had some well-defined BS. In terms of size, they were somewhere between Koneko and Revel. They resembled a pair of teardrops. Naruto wondered what they tasted like. He was tempted to find out, but he knew that letting his libido get away from him might not be the best idea right now. Naruto-san, could you stop staring at me like that? Luffy held her hands to her chest, hiding her NS from his lascivious gaze. Oh, sorry. Naruto turned his head. They're just so beautiful I couldn't help but stare at them. Oh, Luffy's cheeks turned scarlet. Well, I'm very flattered, you know, but, I guess, It's okay if you look, since it's you. Really? Asked Naruto, suddenly hopeful. Absolutely not. Revel snapped. Don't even think about it, Koneko said at the same time. After the game of Mahjong, the group also played Monster Hunter on the PSP. Koneko apparently had enough spare consoles to go around. Of course, LeFay had never played a video game before, so it took her a while before she got the hang of the controls. The game fortunately had an easy-to-use interface. Just like how Revel had quickly learned how to use the PSP controls, LeFay also figured it out at a swift pace. She actually seemed to have even more fun than Revel did when she began learning. Is that a dragon? This game has dragons. Of course it does, Koneko said to LeFay's loud shouting. What kind of monster hunting game doesn't have dragons? They aren't very strong though, Revel mumbled as she maneuvered her character to S into Taroth, the elder dragon they were fighting. A real dragon would K these things easily. Still, normal people are pretty amazing, huh? LeFay marveled at the device. This PSP is quite something, and it takes some incredible creativity to come up with a game like this. Humans are geniuses, that's for sure, Koneko agreed. You guys are so lucky drop items don't go to the person who makes the K, or I'd have stolen all the items on this quest a long time ago, Naruto said as he created a combo attack that finished off Taroth. Among the four of them, Koneko was the first to crash. It was several hours after they played Monster Hunter. She crawled onto the couch, laid down, and placed her head in Naruto's lap. Naruto was used to this and just stroked the girl's head while she slept. LeFay stared at Koneko for a moment like she wanted something from the girl, but then she merely sighed and laid down on her couch to get some rest. Revel, on the other hand, took the spot on Naruto's other side, though she didn't fall asleep right away. You know, before I left, Riza told me something about the Chaos Brigade, she said. Naruto furrowed his brow. What did he say? He said, the evil dragons aren't the only ace Rizvim has up his sleeve, Revel said. He told me that if we wanted to learn what kind of forces we were up against, then we should visit the vampire clans in Europe. The vampire clans, huh? Naruto leaned back and looked at the ceiling as his thoughts suddenly turned to Gasper Vladdy, their resident vampire, well, half vampire. It sounded like there might be trouble in his former home. Maybe. Come to think of it, Naruto didn't actually know where Gasper used to live before Rias found him. Revel eventually fell asleep, leaning over and using his shoulder as a pillow. Naruto had another free hand, so he sought out her hand and held it while she slept. Like that, they eventually arrived at the territory belonging to House Gremory. Naruto. Boofer, MPH. The moment they stepped out of the train, Naruto came under assault, or his lips did, at any rate. It took him a moment to realize the one who was kissing him was Rias Gremory. Once he realized what was happening, Naruto gladly reciprocated the kiss, wrapping his arms around Rias's waist and pulling her closer. How long had it been since he felt these BS on his chest? Well, technically, he guessed it hadn't been that long, but at the same time, it felt like a really long time had passed. He was sure that was just his imagination though. I'm glad you're back, Rias said after breaking off the kiss. Me too. I missed you, Naruto said. While Rias's greeting toward him might have been the most enthusiastic, she did not neglect Koneko or Revel, both of whom received a big hug. LeFay did not. However, the two of them still weren't what Naruto would consider friends. Friendly acquaintances maybe, but not friends. You seem to be having fun ignoring me, a voice said as Naruto watched the touching reunion between Rias, Revel, and Koneko. Naruto turned around at the sound of that voice and spotted someone he hadn't seen since they rescued her from Rizvim. Standing at around the same height as Revel and Koneko, with a bust size that was halfway between the two, the dark-haired girl with eyes blacker than voids was none other than Office, the legendary Ouroboros dragon. Office. Naruto felt excitement bubbling inside of him as he swept the girl off her feet. Office squawked in surprise, though that squawk became muffled when Naruto pressed their lips together. Her eyes went wide, though she soon closed them. She kissed back. However, her kiss was a lot more tentative. She might have been a dragon god, but she didn't have that much experience. I'm glad to see you, Naruto said as he set the girl back on her feet. I certainly hope so, Office said. I'd be disappointed if you weren't happy to see me. After Isai's body was destroyed by Shelba, Office had journeyed into the dimensional gap between worlds to locate his soul. That had been several days ago. In fact, over a week had passed since it happened. If Office was here then, does that mean you managed to resurrect Eyes? He asked finally. Of course I have. Office puffed out her chest with pride. And now that I've saved Eyes, you and I are going to have S. Save that sort of conversation for later, you two. Rias turned to Naruto and Office, placed her hands on her hips, and frowned at them. This isn't the time or place. Come on, everyone else is waiting for us. Devil Ninja, what was that, you be? I dare you to say that again. You fufufu, did you not hear me the first time? I said your presence was no longer required. And who decided that? I did, of course. We only need one person with Fallen Angel B here. You have performed your services admirably, but now it's time to leave the stage. You can't possibly think I'm going to leave just because you told me to. I'm staying right here. I think not. Naruto was not sure what he had expected to find upon his arrival at the Gremory estate, but Akeno and Rainier arguing while Issei, Asia, and Zenivia watched from the couch was not it. The two black-haired beauties were practically bust to bust now. He didn't know what they were arguing about, but it looked like this argument was seconds away from becoming violent. They were not the only ones present. Gasper, Kiba, and Rosweiss were also there. Rosweiss was sitting on the opposite couch as Issei, Asia, and Zenivia, but Kiba was leaning against a wall like he usually did. Meanwhile, Gasper was hiding inside of his cardboard box. When Issei saw Naruto, Rias, Ravel, Office, Koneko, and Luffy enter the room, his eyes brightened and a relieved smile appeared on his face. Naruto-sensei. Issei waved at them with a happy grin. Welcome back. Ah, thanks. At this point, Akeno and Rainier also noticed them and stopped arguing. They crossed their arms, huffed, and looked away. I see you've been successfully revived, Naruto said. Yeah. Issei rubbed the back of his head. It's all thanks to Office and Great Red. They're the ones who gave me this new body. New body. Naruto glanced at Office with a single raised eyebrow. She looked up at him with her large, dark, unfathomable eyes. Ai's original body was destroyed by Samael's curse, Office began explaining once she realized what he wanted. So me and Great Red rebuilt his body. It's made from Great Red's F and my power. You could actually say Ai's has become a human-shaped dragon now. Does that mean Ai's isn't human anymore? Asked Luffy, who stared at Office with curiosity gleaming in her eyes. Office nodded. Since we had to rebuild his body from scratch using parts from us dragons, his body is no longer human. That's fascinating. Luffy suddenly turned on Issei and began staring at him as though expecting dragon wings and a tail to sprout from his back. For his part, Issei looked a little freaked out by her sudden fervor. I'm not some kind of animal you can just gawk at, you know, he said. Naruto looked from the curious Luffy to Rias. The redhead was still standing right next to him. There was a smile on her face as she watched what could almost be considered typical behavior for their household. He understood how she felt. Issei's death had hit them hard and left a huge hole in their chests, but now that he was back, it was almost like all that pain and sadness had never happened. Maybe you could explain what happened while we were gone, Naruto suggested. That's a good idea. I actually planned on doing that, Rias said. But first, let's sit down and get some refreshments. While sitting down sounded like something that was easy and should have taken seconds, all you had to do was sit your butt in a damn chair, it became much harder when so many people wanted to sit right next to you. Naruto discovered the first problem when Koneko tried to take his lap. Office did not appreciate that. You have been with Naruto for several days already, she explained. It is my turn to sit on him. Besides, he needs to praise me for reviving Ai's. Not on your life, Koneko hissed. This is my spot. While Koneko and Office were arguing over who got to sit on Naruto's lap, Luffy stole the spot on his right. Ravel was also sneaking over to him. It looked like she was going to try and steal his lap for herself, but Koneko and Office both noticed her. Oh, no you don't. Office shouted. You already had S with him last night. Your lap privileges have been revoked. Koneko added. That isn't fair. Ravel shouted back. If you two are going to argue, then why shouldn't I be allowed to claim Naruto's lap for my own? It was only after saying this that Ravel realized what she had said and blushed right down to the roots of her hair. I mean, I'm also marrying him, so. That spot is mine. Office and Koneko said at the same time. The argument would have no doubt continued, but then Rias, who sat on Naruto's left, told Koneko that Office deserved to sit on his lap because she revived Issei. Koneko had puffed out her cheeks and her cat ears twitched irritably, but she didn't go against her king's wishes. With that, Office claimed Naruto's lap for herself. She had shrunk back to her lowly form to make things easier and demanded he rub her head, so Naruto ended up pampering the girl as Koneko and Ravel took the spots on the couch furthest from him. Neither of them seemed pleased. Rosweiss opted to stand behind Naruto and Rias, though he suspected that was because there was no more room on the couch. On the other couch sat Issei, Asia, Zenevia, Akeno, and Rainer. Akeno and Rainer were sitting as far from each other as possible. While Koneko and Office had been battling over his lap, those two had also been fighting. Issei, Zenevia, and Asia had been forced to separate them because they had almost come to blows. Now that everyone has settled down, Rias began as she crossed her arms, I believe it's time we all got caught up on what's been happening with each other. Naruto, after you, Koneko, Ravel, and Luffy left, we received a message from my brother that House Citri's territory was under attack by evil dragons and members of the Chaos Brigade. We traveled there and fought against them, but while we were able to deal with the Chaos Brigade, the dragon overwhelmed us. Even when me, Akeno, Rosweiss, Rainer, and Kiba teamed up against it, we could do very little to defeat him. Sounds like this dragon you fought was a real problem, Koneko muttered. He was more than just a problem, Rosweiss muttered bitterly. We were fighting against Ladin. He's known as the Insomniac Dragon. In the past, Ladin was charged with guarding the golden apples of Hesperides, but he was killed by the original Heracles of Greek mythology. His defensive abilities are incredible. He doesn't have the durability of Grendel, but on top of having an excellent defense, he can also use barrier magic that surpasses anything I've ever seen. Even my newest attack couldn't kill him, Rias added. As they were talking, Office leaned backward until her back was pressed against Naruto's chest. She seemed to be enjoying his pampering more than usual. He jokingly thought maybe she'd been going through head-petting withdrawals. In either event, if it wasn't for Ai's and Office's arrival, we might not have been able to push them back. Rias continued telling the story of what happened. We weren't able to break through his barrier even after Issei and Office joined us, but we were able to keep him from gaining ground. He was eventually summoned away from the battlefield with a dragon's gate. We were honestly really lucky. I hear the only weapon able to break through Ladin's barrier is the true Longinus, Rosweiss added. I could also break through it if I was at full power, Office said. But you're not at full power. That's the problem, Rias told her. HMPH. The conversation continued, but there wasn't much to explain after Rias told him about her battle with Ladin. After the dragon retreated, Rias and the others left clean up to the members of House Citri and made their way back to the Gremory estate. After Rias informed Naruto of what happened on her end, Naruto told Rias about his battle with Nihoga, Rise's capture at the hands of Ravel, Koneko, and Luffy, and the training Ravel underwent. There wasn't as much to tell, so his debriefing was rather short. It seems like we all went through a lot, Rias said. However, we won't be returning to the human world just yet. Her words caused everyone to straighten in their seats. Kiba uncrossed his arms, Gasper stuck his head out of the box he was hiding in, and Rosweiss shifted from one foot to the other. Why aren't we leaving? Asked Issei. Is something happening? Yes, something is happening. Rias smiled at them all. We were supposed to do this a while ago, but with all the chaos going around thanks to the Chaos Brigade, we weren't able to do it until now. All of you have grown incredibly strong. You are more than strong enough to have earned the middle-class devil ranking several times over, which is why, 2 days from now, Asia, Akeno, Kiba, Koneko, Ice, Gasper, Rosweiss, and Zenevia will be taking the promotion tests. If you are successful, you'll become middle-class devils, which means you will either become a baronet, a baronetess, a knight, or a dame. Naruto, you will be taking the promotion test for high-class devils. Naruto was surprised to hear they were going to be taking the promotion to see if they were worthy of climbing up the devil social ladder. He had completely forgotten he and the others were considered low-class devils. Honestly, He didn't care much about earning a higher ranking, but he did know it was important. He was engaged to Rias and Ravel, two high-class devils born from noble families. A middle-class devil like himself did not have the status to marry women like that, much less to. The devil promotion test, should be fun. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.